Good afternoon, Mr. Painter, FCA Executive Leadership. We are elated to detail and outline to you the evolution, the ideal Painter Motors retailing experience. My name is Tracy Akinade.
I'm Jasmine Harlan Gray.
And I'm Tiffany Munker.
When we of shifting to an online car buying process, we thought first, we need to take a step back and shift to re-engage with the in-person experience. Here's a look at what that was like. We are going to Oarsman Jeep in Bethesda, Maryland. Okay, we're coming to a stop so I can talk to you a little bit more.
Okay.
And we're trying to figure out how best to shift in-person car dealership or in-person car sales to online.
Am I still going to be able to get that in-person experience online?
We're about to find out.
Okay.
Times like this in COVID. Nice to meet you.
You too.
I'm a little nervous, but because I was trying to maybe go through this process online.
Well, this whole process is meant to be online anyway, so.
Okay, so you guys deliver the car to our house, so I can actually do this online
You
right now?
actually do everything online. You don't
Okay.
even have to set foot in here, and then we'll deliver the car to you.
How?
Even when you want to test drive the car, so we can still do the same thing. 32 is the price of the car, right?
33.
I mean, well, 32 now is the price of no 33. We promote 32 because it's actually 32. That's the price of the car. Like, if you go to a grocery store or a shoe store, the shoe is probably $110, but then you gotta pay tax. You see what I'm saying?
Now I understand, but when you click that breakdown, the order of the breakdown does not follow that, so that's why it can be a little misleading.
Like I said, we don't negotiate, but for right now, this is the price. This is like the highest you will see this price.
Okay. So I would like to get that down to 35.
You're here, we're transparent, we don't play games. Just buy a car from us. I gotta keep it honest with you.
Woo, did you forget what the in-person experience could feel like? Shortly after that haggle session, I test drove Angela's car of choice, the Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited, and I loved it. Upon returning to the dealership though, the store manager found me and asked me what my best and final was. I told him $35K, which Jay wasn't too sure about, and he invited me to a second session of haggling to see what he could do. Now, Jay the rep was great, but the back and forth was not. And this is why we're here to guide Painter Motors into the world of digital. Now let's meet Angela from our case. She's retiring and on the hunt for an all-wheel drive Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited. She also, however, needs to mitigate risk to exposure because her daughter's immunocompromised. However, she's a bit skeptical that the car buying process could completely be online. This takes us to our problem statement that really guided and gave vision to our design thinking process moving forward. How might we create a seamless, meaningful online experience for Painter Motors in a way that aligns with the FCA brand and values customer choice?
So as Tracy mentioned, to approach this case, we decided to use the design thinking model, which focuses heavily on empathizing with users, understanding their pain points and their gain points, and then creating innovative solutions to approach their needs. So the first step in this process was to dig a little bit into our secondary research.
And like Jasmine stated, to understand Angela's predicament and Painter Motors wanting to incorporate a seamless online car buying experience, we began our design thinking process with secondary research. From our research, we learned what the FCA Jeep brand is and what it represents. We were also able to grasp a better understanding of the market and the threats to it, as well as a realignment of allocated resources within advertising in the automotive industry. In addition, we gleaned from the competitive analysis strengths and weaknesses from FCA's competitors as lessons learned from the online digital retail implementation. Our next step in the design thinking process is primary research. We wanted to understand the pain points and gain a further understanding of the current customer experience and Angela's predicament, and in doing so, we conducted 7 interviews. We also interviewed dealerships to gain a dealership perspective to help us to further understand Painter Motors' predicament of the current shift and the need for the ideal digital retail solution. To dive deeper, we also reviewed Carvana and its customers' experiences of online purchases, as well as conducted an observation which Tracy, the intro video that we previously watched, physically went into the Jeep dealership. Through our primary interviews, several themes truly resonated among the interviewees. For instance, all interviewees, regardless of age, gender, ethnic background, occupation, marital status, all conducted their initial research online. And as a result, they were prepared and narrowed down their vehicle as to which ones they wanted to test drive. So by the time they went to the dealership, they already knew the vehicle they wanted. Therefore, the salesperson was merely just a facilitator. Themes such as transparency and trust were also vital. And other themes that resonated also came from several Carvana reviews, such as customers having difficulty in the online delivery process, and the process is not as seamless as it appeared. And from our introduction video, as Tracy went to test drive Angela's choice of the Jeep Cherokee, pressure to purchase the Jeep ensued, and price inconsistency from online to on-site were prevalent. And to give you a sense of what we heard from our primary interviews, here are a couple of quotes from our interviewees. From one of our in-person buyers, she states, "The most critical factor in my online experience is the human element, meaning the importance of having the ability and access to reach someone to address any issues, questions, or concerns."
And another quote that really stuck out to us said that it's a crapshoot with the in-person process. You just never know what you'll end up with or what that'll really look like. The interviews Tiffany mentioned were actually a lot of fun because we really got to learn from the consumer perspective. With that data, we then concluded the next 3 car buying persona types for the ideation stage of design thinking. First, we have the online only shopper who is completely comfortable shopping online. They trust their own reasoning and logic, and bottom line are just tired of the in-person process. How can Painter Motors help this customer? Provide them the flexibility to talk to an actual salesperson if needed, and offer the process fully 100% online. Next, we have the starts online and finishes in store consumer. Their biggest thing is the test drive option. And even though there is that online piece, there's a little bit of trepidation there. So they still find value in meaning talking in person. How can Painter Motors help this customer? Provide them a process where they can customize their shopping experience at any given point. And then lastly, we have the traditionalist that does it all in store. They do not trust online buying at all. They believe that car buying is a major financial investment that requires in-person confirmation. How can Painter Motors help this consumer? Provide them a safe, contactless, transparent experience in person. However, also respect their opinion and foster a strong customer relationship. From the themes that we heard, here are the insights that we learned that are now actionable for Painter Motors. First, they have to make sure there's flexibility in the process so that the customer can design a journey that meets their needs. Secondly, there has to be the option whether they want to be online or in person, but still able to touch with a human person to provide security and support. And lastly, while a lot of things are moving digital online, there is still some trepidation that the process will be done well. So Painter Motors will have to position itself as a trustworthy brand with consistency no matter what touch point or channel the customer consumes.
So the next step in our design thinking process was to prototype some recommendation models for our solution. And those recommendations spanned 3 key areas: the marketing that you would see on Painter Motors' website, the e-commerce and delivery solution, as well as lead and training management. So first, we identified some important communication elements that Painter Motors should keep in mind when updating their online advertising and marketing to represent their new strategy. As we mentioned, delivery was a huge concern for our customers. They wanted to know that their delivery would arrive scratch and hassle-free. That's why it's important for Painter Motors to convey that the customer can trust them in this step. Secondly, as you saw from the video, car pricing can be confusing and sometimes even feel misleading. It's important that Painter Motors communicate that the pricing will be transparent and what the customer sees online is exactly what they get in store. Choice and control were also important, using language like choose your destination so that the customer knows that this process will be flexible to meet their exact needs. And finally, strong communication is extremely valuable so that the customer knows that a sales representative will be with them every step of the way. Additionally, we identified some key touch points to incorporate into our offering. To address concerns around COVID-19, Painter Motors should communicate the practices and policies in place around health and safety, as well as include a certified clean sticker on the inside of every car that's delivered. They should also offer an optional virtual walkthrough where a customer would be able to video chat with a sales representative, discuss their purchasing decision, and even virtually get inside of the car. And finally, they should offer a 24-hour test drive model. With that test drive model, the sales representative would drop the car off at their home, and the customer would be able to get inside of their car and test it without even stepping foot inside of the dealership. So to facilitate this online experience, we're recommending that Painter Motor adopt a Roadster digital solution. Roadster is an online marketplace where Painter Motors can digitally display their entire inventory of cars. It also offers multiple varieties of features, including multiple payment options, an online credit application, as well as an accurate trade-in and evaluation process. From the dealership end, they can manage their leads through Roadster. It integrates easily into store, as well as integrates with some of the solutions FCA currently uses, like VIN Solutions and Dealer.com. To come to this conclusion, we conducted a competitive analysis across some of the top brands, including Motor Insight and CarNow. As you can see, these brands are quite comparable, so what really set Roadster apart for us was their extensive training program. They offer flexible online and in-store training, a certificate program where you can get certified in their solution, as well as a sales representative who comes to your store every 6 weeks in order to check on your integration. Because Painter Motor has recently lost 5 employees, we believe that this solution is the best to support them in this transition.
So once the customer engages with Painter Motors online and decides to make the purchase, next is the delivery process. This was a huge pain point and gain point from our research, so we decided on a branded Painter Motors dually flatbed truck to deliver the car. This will be free of cost within 100 miles. You'll see in our budget below our choice of the Dodge Ram that also stays within the FCA family, and costs that include for the trailer hookup, insurance policy, and diesel fuel charges. With this aspect, it's all about quality service in a local market that we also see could expand to the larger FCA brand for all dealers across the nation to give that personal touch. This flatbed truck is the crux of our marketing and advertising strategy that will allow us to almost double dip in value to the customer and also the value proposition for Painter Motors. This approach catered to the local charm of Painter Motors, and you're really gonna love the added benefit of marketing as the truck drives throughout the city. In the lead management and training process, here's where George's role really starts to expand. His role as internet manager will oversee assigning all of the leads to the sales team and track the response process to ensure customers are contacted in a timely fashion. We recommend that Painter Motors shift to a lead management process where the sales team maintains the customer relationship from start to close of transaction. George will also empower his sales team by teaching a customer engagement training model that focuses on retail personalities: the feeler customer, the thinker customer, the controller customer, and the entertainer customer. This shift to a 360-degree customer engagement process will again position Painter Motors as trustworthy and also in turn generate profit. George's role also takes the lead on implementing the push in marketing and advertising these shifts in lead management and the tone and language that Jasmine spoke to earlier. Now here's where it gets even better. We mentioned Painter Motors.
So to give you a sense of what this process would look like from beginning to end, we built out these customer experience maps that are directly connected to our personas. So first, with this online-only shopper, what's important to call out here is that the customer will be able to go through the entire process from beginning to end through Roadster. They can build their deal, select their payment structure, maybe even add some accessories and protection plans, and then submit their deal online. George, our internet sales manager, would then receive that lead, then pass it off directly to a sales representative who will facilitate the rest of the deal. That customer might even dip into the 24-hour test drive model, and then finally they would schedule their own delivery online through Roadster, as well as complete their final paperwork. For the starts online and finishes in store, as well as the traditionalist, this customer experience is quite similar. What's important to point out here is that that customer might not go through the entire process. They might stop before they finish their credit application and instead opt to schedule an in-store appointment with a sales representative. When they get in store, they'd be able to start exactly where they left off on Roadster and finish their purchase, maybe even complete their credit application once they get home and they've thought about their purchase, and then go online through Roadster and schedule their in-store pickup.
So we mentioned Painter Motors needing to position themselves as a trustworthy brand no matter the touch point. And when the customer engages online, they'll get that sense of trust through the Painter Motors Trusted Seller's Promise. We emphasize consistent interaction focused on their needs. The car buying process, we know, is an emotional and intentional one. So they'll feel that promise to care for them and select the warranty of their choice. You're going to see this promise continue through our exchange program.
So with the FCA Exchange Promise, our focus is on the customer, enhancing the customer experience, and providing a trusted business model. With the customer focus, we want to focus on the customer. Therefore, to accomplish that, like Tracy stated, we will focus on internal parameters such as extensive training in addition with the lead management training. The FCA Exchange Promise also wants to enhance the customer experience. Therefore, we will offer another 24-hour holding period to provide another opportunity to test drive the vehicle again before purchase, because we want to make sure that your purchase is the right fit for you. With the FCA Exchange Promise, we also want to ensure that we are following the trusted business model. In doing so, FCA will offer a one-time exchange. So for example, if a customer purchased a new car within the last 3 days and it is under 100 miles, they can exchange it for another vehicle on the lot. Similarly, if the customer buys a used vehicle within the last 5 days and it is under 150 miles, then they too can exchange it for another used vehicle. So we highlighted our recommendations where Jasmine explained the marketing and the best suited e-commerce platform, and Tracy explained the delivery process. Yet here comes a vital question. What are the implementation costs for Painter Motors to implement the ideal digital solution? The highest cost will be around $258,000 during the first year, and for the remaining years, the cost will decrease by 72%. It is also important to note that since the Internet Manager will be taking care of advertising, Painter Motors will incur a savings in advertising costs. However, the bigger question is, what is the overall cost across the 5-year time span? Well, it is $1,006,700 per dealership. So next, let us take a look at the forecast and projection for Painter Motors. We can see that by investing in our recommended digital retail solution, there'll be an increase of revenue as well as an increase of cars sold throughout the 5-year span. To get a better understanding, we need to take a look at the difference between the revenue with implementation and the revenue without implementation. To determine the revenue in cars sold without implementation per year, we base the car sales and cars sold on 40,000 per unit and 50 cars sold per month and use a CAGR of 8%. In doing so, we yielded a revenue of 24,600,000 cars sold in the first year, while in the 5th year, we yielded 26,562,662 cars. However, when compared to revenue and cars sold with implementation, using a 13.82% of CAGR, we yielded 26,460,660 cars in the first year and yielded 37,925,000 cars sold in the 5th year. Hence, by the end of the 5th year, when comparing revenue and projected cars sold with implementation and without implementation, there is an increase of 40% of both revenue and cars sold. So why invest in our overall suggested digital retail solution? Well, implementing our solution does not only separate you from the pack, but it is a financial investment worthwhile. To truly understand the value of this investment, we first need to determine the NOBIT, in which we subtracted the implementation costs, the selling, general, and administrative costs, and the cost of goods from the forecasted revenue with the implementation. After calculations, our net operating profit with implementation showed us that there is an exponential increase of profits across the 5-year span. Next, to capture the present value of the projected profit, we calculated the net present value, in which we used FCA's weighted average cost of capital of 9%. In summary, this data shows us that the present value of money invested today in our suggested digital retail solution will increase by 50% within the 5-year span.
Mr. Painter, FCA Executive Leadership, our team is confident that you're thinking, what's next? So first, let's remember the benefits. Our full recommendation will position FCA and Painter Motors as a customer-centric brand rooted in the empathetic process, as we showed through the design thinking process. Now we have to also consider the risk. And with COVID being a global threat, we still don't know when people will be free to be outside again. We also understand with the shift in job function that potentially there could be a challenge with employee bandwidth. But first, to get started, we want to implement the lead management personalized experience with COVID in mind. And with that, we thank you for your time. Now let's run into some Q&A.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and start the 10-minute timer now.
I guess I'll start. First, fantastic job. I was really impressed with how you laid everything out. One question related to the Roadster digital solution. I think it's a very prudent idea since you're using a platform that already exists. But the one challenge I have with that approach is, how does that separate Painter from its competition?
I think with Roadster, what goes above and beyond is their digital interface. So we also compare digital interfaces with the other options on the market, like CarNow, Moto Insight, Dealer.com has some options. It's significantly easier to navigate in terms of user experience than some of those other options. So if a customer is coming to our Painter Motor option online, they're going to have an easier experience from front to end.
Let's say I agree with that, but what keeps the dealership across the road from using the same Roadster process when they come to the conclusion that Roadster is better than what they've been using?
I think to also to add on to that is that even though we're implementing Roadster, we're also going to be implementing various programs like the FCA exchange programs, our trusted business model. So with all these added elements, it's going to enhance the Roadster digital solution. So even though that's our e-commerce platform, we have other variables that are going to be added to create Painter Motors to extend and become that leader.
The other
Thank
thing
you.
to add, Mr. Washington, just really quickly, Jasmine spoke about what separated Roadster from all the other competitors, and that was the training piece. We were very intentional about the part that Painter Motors is in a position where they just lost 5 employees. So we have to partner and position them with an interface that can support those changes, that can support those needs, and that's different from any other competitor. Roadster will come to the dealership, actually make sure and provide support on site or virtually based off of choice. So I think no matter what the dealership wants to shift with their website or shift with their digital retailing solution, Roadster is positioned and there physically or virtually to foster that change quickly without a 24-hour lag. So as George and Mr. Painter are making changes, those can be made real time.
Okay, thank you.
I had a kind of a technical question. This is Bill Woodson. Sorry about my camera not being on. You mentioned this delivery vehicle being kind of an important part of your strategy, and I was wondering how many vehicles a day at maximum might Painter need to deliver, and what would be the capacity of one delivery truck in terms of how many vehicles could it deliver in a day?
So we did the math with a trailer that was for 4 cars at once. And then we did an average of 2 to 5 cars per day.
Thank you.
So another question. I really like the fact that you captured through video a real experience with a dealership. Did you pick a bad dealership through effort, or was it just randomly bad?
Mr. Washington, thank you for that question. If I'm very honest with you, so we are on the East Coast, and in the area where I'm located, I actually picked the more affluent neighborhood. And that dealership in particular, I wish I could have shown more footage, but we had to really, cut it tight to what was most important. That dealership actually launched at the top of the year prior to COVID. And so they were still building out their showroom. And I think what was important to note is that everything was brand new. they were already on track to implement the whole online digital process. And Jay, who you saw, I asked him when he started the role, and he had started the role maybe right before COVID. So he's relatively new to the process, but he was very intentional, followed up with me because I set the appointment the day before. Very kind, made sure I had water, that I wasn't parched. And he was just very persistent about making sure that he could kind of give me all the aspects and options to make the deal. So I picked a dealership that was in an affluent area, that was brand new and that was ready to go. And that was kind of the process. I do feel that they did a good job of just staying on top of the opportunity with me. But at the same time, it was that I posed $35K. Jay wasn't too sure about it. And again, what I couldn't share in the video was that as soon as I walked in after the test drive, another manager that I had not met, had not seen, already knew about what I was looking for and my price, even though he asked me what it was, and asked me if that's what I wanted walking out the door. I said, best and final out the door, paused and said, let me see what I can do for you. So if you're now telling me you can do 35 if we sit down, but the previous conversation, you weren't too sure.
Right.
My biggest thing that I asked, again, wasn't able to include this, was if I'm trying to do this online and you're telling me now that there are additional discounts that you will try and endeavor to find out that I can qualify for, how would I know that I could get that online? So that was the biggest thing. I think as a dealership, aesthetically pleasing, I think the staff did a great job of just doing what they were there to do. But the biggest piece is that trust that, you know, I know for me, I'm a face-to-face person, and I feel if I was to do this online, I would not get the best deal.
Mm-hmm.
So Tracy, this is Lottie. Just adding to that, because I did have a question about the haggling, right?
Yeah.
Because that was quite apparent in the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so in your research, did you find that there is some standardized approach to how all of the dealers are handling the haggling portion? So I've heard that there is some type of, you know, I don't want to say an agreement amongst all, but there has to be some approach, because now this is something that everyone is faced with. Do you show the actual, you know, price of the vehicle online, or do you tack on, you know, whatever it is, a $7,000 to that price to allow room for haggling? And then how is that consistent across, you know, all of your online employees? What did you find in doing your research to help mitigate this issue?
There was real quickly, there was a consistent theme of stating that we don't haggle, we don't negotiate. And in the video, you heard Jay say, we don't negotiate. However, once I kept asking, well, this is what I want to pay, there was room to negotiate. So the biggest thing is the verbal conversation of stating what they do and do not do. But if I'm not folding, then that's where the other options start to come out. And so I asked him also if that was standard and if that was how they were operating as a dealership, and he said yes. And so he also said the big thing is that they're encouraging people to do this process online a lot so that they can manage that digital experience. So in my research, it was really about verbatim stating, we do not negotiate, we do not haggle. However, if I want to push a little further, I definitely can. Jasmine, you were going to add on.
Yeah, so we also interviewed 2 dealerships in Michigan, kind of where this case is set. And in those conversations, we also talked to them about how do they mitigate that pricing. And for those 2 dealerships, they had specific business models that they had built around the concept of pricing, where they specifically advertised online that they do 100% transparent pricing with the exact breakdown of each line item in the price. And they make sure that they maintain that pricing from online and in store so that they're not giving variation in prices. And instead, they offer their coupons and incentives on top of that so customers can get an additional deal that way. So that was something that went into our research of that transparent pricing of a line-by-line breakdown, which Roadster offers, was extremely important so customers aren't confused when they're going back and forth.
And to your point, Ms. Holland, we were really intentional about finding this data within dealerships in Michigan and then dealerships in our local area as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ken Watson, one quick question. I really like the clusters and I really like the prototyping, but could you give me a couple seconds on the length of the prototyping? how long would you do the prototyping, and what would be the go, no-go decision?
Are you saying for implementing the solution?
Yes.
How long would
Yes.
be how long be prototyping?
Yes.
I think roughly about 90 days would be ideal.
I'm sorry, time's up.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic
Yeah.
job.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Good job.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Well done.
Have a
Great
good day.
job.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.